Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing the reader problem tag. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I have the questions typed out here, and the first question is, you have 20,000 books on your TBR. How in the world are you going to decide what to read next? And for me, this is pretty easy. I am pretty much a mood reader, so I'm just going to pick up whatever I'm in the mood for. That might be something that has been on my TBR for a really long time, and it might be something that is brand new to the list. Also, I am normally good about keeping one really long series going at a time. So like, for example, right now, that is Malazan Book of the Fallen. So if I have something like that going on, I would just pick up the next book in that series. Question number 2 is, you're halfway through a book and you're just not loving it. Do you quit it or are you committed? So fun fact, I don't think I have ever DNF'd a book as an adult. I can actually remember the last book I DNF'd, and it was when I was really young, and that was actually Aragon. I think I DNF'd it like halfway through or something like that. Just was not enjoying it, but that is actually the last time I can remember DNFing a book. I always push through to the end, sometimes to my own detriment, to myself, sometimes to the detriment about the book, though if I'm normally feeling that strongly about it, it's probably not going to save itself in the latter half. The biggest problem I have with this is when a book is so good until like the halfway point or 3/4 of the way through. I actually have this problem a lot with thrillers where they kind of fall off at the end for me, and I kind of have to just push myself through and make myself finish, even though I don't really want to, because you never know, maybe the ending will save it, and that is kind of how I always handle that, and I always push through. I will DNF a series, but it's been a long time. I mean, well over 10 years since I DNF'd Aragon. So yeah, that I pushed through, unfortunately. Question number 3 is, the end of the year is coming and you are so close but so far away on your Goodreads reading challenge. Do you try to catch up? And if so, how? Yeah, no, I probably wouldn't do anything to catch up. It's kind of an arbitrary number. I do set a goal for myself. Normally it's something I think is pretty achievable, but I don't really care how many books I read. I care more about if I enjoy what I'm reading, which is funny with not DNFing anything. But yeah, I wouldn't. I do think that book count isn't the best way to indicate how much you have read. For example, last year, I read so many novellas and short stories that kind of inflated my numbers more than they normally would have been. I think page count, or really word count, is probably the best way to actually look at what you're doing. And I guess if you take, all 3 of those numbers, you can kind of figure out how much you end up reading, because even pages aren't always the same depending on what version of a book you're reading. But yeah, in general, I do think it's good to have goals, to make sure you are reading at a normal pace. But for me, I've just been reading at a good pace for a while now, so it's not really something I worry too much about, though it is nice to set a goal and hit it, so I do understand why people do it. Question number 4 is, the covers of a series you love do not match. How do you cope? So actually, most of my books are digital, so like 90% of my books are audiobooks, like the next 8 are ebooks, and then like 2% of them are physical books. Mostly books behind me I've had for an extremely long time. So like that's why you have stuff like Twilight and things like that back there, because those are books I read a long time ago. As far as books not matching, I know some people really care and like they really want their editions to look nice and line up and everything. And while I do appreciate it, like I do appreciate the Dragonsteel secret projects back there, I don't really care. I think, most people should probably go to secondhand bookstores and get their books, and if not, the library is probably an even better choice. That's definitely something I have been trying to do more of this year, is use my library. So, I mean, I do understand if there's a series you really love or a book you really love, getting a nice edition of it. But as far as just getting books that all match and line up and look good on the shelf for no reason outside of that, it's not something I really care about. Yeah, I get secondhand used books all the time. I think that's probably the way to go. Question number 5 is, everyone and their mother loves a book you really don't like. Who do you bond with this and share your feelings about it? Really, probably somebody I would find on BookTube. I would try to find some reviews of it and find some people who didn't feel about it. Maybe there's a Discord somewhere. There's so many, and I'm not really a Discord person, but I'm sure somewhere out there I could find somebody. In my real life, not many people I know read the same kind of things I do. That's part of the reason why I have a BookTube channel, so that I can spew my nonsense out into the universe. But having a hot take on the book, there's going to be somebody else who agrees with you. Sometimes that might just be going to Goodreads and reading negative reviews and seeing if other people agree with what you say, because when it comes to reading, everyone's going to have different opinions, everyone's going to have different experiences and all of that. So there's going to be someone out there who probably aligns with you. Not every book. There's not one single book that is for everybody, and there's not one single book that everybody will hate. Question number 6 is, you are reading a book and you're about to start crying in public. How do you feel? So, fun story. This actually happened to me not that long ago. I was listening to Rhythm of War, and probably my favorite chapter in the entire Stormlight archive came up. And it's a very emotional scene. It's chapter like 108, 107, somewhere in there, if you are curious about it. And I had just finished up lifting, and I was doing my cardio on the treadmill, and I'm listening to it as I'm walking, and I'm just like, I pause, I stop walking on the treadmill, and I just look down, and I'm like, okay, you cannot be in the gym crying in public. I don't think there's anything wrong with crying to books. In particular, Frederick Bachman has made me cry like 2 or 3 times. Robert McCannon from A Boy's Life made me cry. It happens. I mean, I think that's what makes a book great, when it can get those kinds of emotions from you, whether it's sadness, happiness, anger, all those different emotions. I mean, that's what I'm looking for in a book. I'm looking to feel those extreme emotions. So doing it in public, probably not a me thing. That's not really something that I'm going to do. But just in general, I mean, I love feeling that way when it comes to books. And question number 7 is, a sequel of a book you loved came out, but you've forgotten a lot from the prior novel. Will you reread the book, skip the sequel, try to find a synopsis on Goodreads, or what? So yeah, normally for me, I will try to find a booktube video, and normally there's somebody out there who is like doing a recap of it. Thankfully, now that I have my own channel, there are definitely some series that I would go back to and listen to myself, or look at notes that I had taken for those videos. I think that'd be really helpful. But yeah, a Wikipedia page, some kind of wiki that's out there for a book. I'm not rereading a whole book to figure something out. So like, I already know there's going to be a 5-year gap at least in between Stormlight 5 and Stormlight 6. There's no way I'm going back and reading all 5 of those books again. Just way too much, and there's way too much I want to read. So I will definitely be watching videos, looking at my notes, and figuring out what I'm forgetting. And for the most part, if I forgot it, it's probably not overly important, or I'll be reminded in that book if the author does a good job. I will say, if you're an author and you are not adding like short synopsis to the beginning of your book, like John Gwynne has done this for, I don't know if he did it for Malice and everything, but he did this in his Bloodsworn saga. When Hunger of the Gods came out, there was a nice little, hey, these are the things that happen in the Shadow of the Gods, and these are the things you should probably remember. If you're not doing that as an author, I think you are absolutely letting your readers down. So definitely do that. Question number 8 is, you do not want anyone borrowing your books. How do you politely tell people no? Well, I would just say no. I think most of the time, this is something that is mine, and if I don't want to share it because something bad could happen to it, I think that is totally fair. I will say, once again, secondhand books are great, especially for this kind of thing. You don't feel that bad about giving out a book that's already kind of beat up and you paid like 75 cents for at a secondhand store. So that is something to keep in mind. And also, if somebody is really adamant that they want to read a book you have, just tell them to go to the library. The library's probably going to have it. So I think that's the best way to handle it. But yeah, don't be afraid to say no to people. That's, don't let people walk all over you. Question number 9 is, you've picked up and put down 5 books in the last month. How do you get over your reading slump? So fortunately for me, reading slumps aren't something that happen to me all that often because I'm a mood reader. So I'm always just kind of reading whatever I want to. And the few examples I do have of where I was going into a reading slump, it normally has to do with me finishing a long, very impactful series for myself. So it's really more of a book hangover than a slump. I know when I finished The Wheel of Time, I just didn't want to read anything else because The Wheel of Time just ended. What am I going to do? How am I going to find anything that matches The Wheel of Time? The same thing when I finished Rhythm of War. I was really hungover from Stormlight, and I was just like, man, what a journey that was. But I think the best thing to do is just find something that you want to read. Don't force yourself to read something that you're not really in the mood for. If there's a book you've been putting off for a long time, but you know you're going to enjoy it, just go for it. I think that's the best thing you can do if you're in a reading slump, is to find something you enjoy. I know some people like switching genres. I know some people like really short books to kind of get the flow going again. But I think in general, if you find something you like and you read it, you're just going to enjoy it and kind of get yourself going again. Question number 10 is, there are so many new books coming out you're dying to read. How many do you actually buy? And as few as possible. I am really trying not to buy books like that anymore. I still have Audible, so at least one a month I do buy, just with my credit, but I really try to utilize their sales and everything. In general, when new books are coming out, I have found that the library, it really is just such a good option to do this with, because you don't have to pay anything and you can probably get a new book. There are so many library and library adjacent things that you can do to get the books you want to read, that I think, not buying brand new books is the best way to go. I know supporting authors is important, but I still feel like as long as I'm not pirating a book, stealing it, or something like that, they're going to get the benefit somewhere along the line. And the final question is, after you've bought these new books, you can't wait to get to it. How long do they sit on your shelf before you read them? So if a new release comes out and I buy it, I'm probably reading that like right away, within a week or two, because I don't buy new books to just sit on my shelf. If I'm going to read it, or if it's new and I want to read it, I'm buying it and reading it pretty much right away. If not, I'm just going to wait until I'm ready to read it to buy it. I know people love having these big giant collections, and I do like having physical books. I do think they look nice, but I just don't think it's as important. Like I said, a lot of these are really old books that I've had for a long time, and as far as digital stuff goes, it's kind of always there. It's instant. It's not like I have to go to a bookstore and it might take a whole afternoon of me driving around, going places, trying to find it. It's not, it's on the internet. Everything's on the internet, and it's instantly delivered to me. So in that case, I'm a little bit spoiled. But that is this tag. If you want to do it, please go ahead and let me know. And if you want to answer any of these in the comments, I'd definitely like to hear answers. But that's all for me. And as always, have a good one.